All right, good afternoon. I'm Michael Lambert, and I am so proud to serve as your city librarian. Thank you. It is my honor to welcome you here to the San Francisco Public Library Corrett Auditorium on this beautiful sports ball Sunday. Before we begin, I'd like to offer a land acknowledgement. The land we are on, the land where this library is located, is the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples. We benefit from being allowed to live and work on their traditional land. We pay our respects and appreciation to the ancestors, elders, and relatives, and we affirm the sovereign rights of the members of this community. Thank you. Well, it is so wonderful to be here in community with all of you. Your presence here today helps further the library's mission to connect our diverse communities to learning, opportunities, and each other. Our mission-driven library staff is made up of passionate intellectual freedom fighters. As an institution, we may be nonpartisan, but make no mistake, we are not neutral when it comes to supporting the freedom to read, the freedom to know, and freedom to seek information. I do want to take a moment to acknowledge a titan in the library industry who has graced us with her presence today. We have Molly Raphael. Please stand, Molly. Molly is the past president of the American Library Association and the retired library director of the Multnomah County library system up in Oregon, and she was also the library director for DC Public Library. Thank you so much for being here today, Molly. In San Francisco, we are so fortunate to have arguably the best public library in the country. Yes. You know, and it's because of all of you, our library supporters, the true champions of our library's vision for a democratic, equitable, and vibrant San Francisco for everyone, where our libraries serve as affirming spaces to make sure our residents get to live their best authentic lives. We're so fortunate to have the support of the San Francisco Bay Area community who recognize our values to be free, open, and welcoming, and accessible to all who come through our doors, and to be a beacon for intellectual freedom. That's why it's more important now than ever to bring films like The Librarians to you. As librarians and library workers, we stand in solidarity with all the work being done by frontline library workers across the country to protect our democracy. Free people read freely. And I also want to say thank you to the Friends and Foundation of the San Francisco Public Library. Yes. The Council of Neighborhood Libraries and our Library Commission who support the programs and our efforts. All right, now it is my pleasure to introduce our wonderful partner from KQED, Ryan Davis, Vice President of Live Events and Experiences. Welcome, Ryan.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. I oversee KQED Live, which is our series dedicated to bringing journalism and public media to life on stages and community spaces across the Bay Area, to amplifying local Bay Area culture and deepening civic participation through events like today. We're very pleased to be presenting this preview screening of the documentary The Librarians, which you will also be able to view in full tomorrow night and thereafter on PBS and through the PBS app. Before we start, can I see a show of hands? Is anybody here a KQED member? I never get tired of seeing this because it is such a blessing that we get to do what we do in a community that is so supportive of the institution of public media. We belong to the community, and we cannot do what we do without support from you to bring quality programming, fact-based journalism, and connections across communities, across the Bay. So thank you deeply from our hearts. And as, at a time like this, your support really is the buttress of a democratic institution like ours. I also want to acknowledge this is a moment when fewer than 4 in 10 Americans reported reading a complete book last year. In a YouGov poll that came out on December 31st. That tells me more than ever that it's important that public media and institutions like the library work together to expand literacy and ensure free access to reading and encouragement and programs that support literacy in our country. So thank you all for being here and being part of that support. I also want to acknowledge the season sponsors that support our programming at KQED, Genentech and the San Francisco Symphony. We're very grateful for their support for our mission of civic and cultural engagement across the Bay. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome our host for today's program that will accompany the film. Baruch Porras Hernandez is the author of the small poetry collections I Miss You, Delicate, and Lovers of the Deep Fried Circle from Sibling Rivalry Press. His solo show won Best Solo Comedy at the New York City Fringe Festival this year, and he is the creator of the online comic Tiny Baruch. He lives here in San Francisco. Please join me in welcoming Baruch Porras Hernandez.
I'm going to use the mic because I love microphones. Welcome, 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 everybody. Please give a nice thank you applause to Ryan and Michael. And to that amazing suit. That suit was fantastic. One more time. Come on, give it up. Yes. Like Ryan said, my name is Baruch Porras Hernandez. I am an author. I'm also a stand-up comedian. Please come see my comedy. I'm also a proud San Franciscan. I've been here almost 20 years. I want 20 more years. And I am a huge fan of this and all San Francisco public libraries. Please, let's give a round of applause to librarians for doing incredible work and inspiring and keeping knowledge alive. I was once a little boy living in the East Bay, and when I was about 11 years old, it was safe enough, my parents would let me take BART from El Cerrito Plaza to the downtown Berkeley Shattuck BART station, and I would go to the Berkeley Public Library. And I have one of these little, short little stories that changed my life. I was very closeted. I had no idea what was going on with me. I was, a little like, I don't think this world is for me. And then one day I'm just in the YA section. I pull out a book called Cody by Keith Hale. I read the first page and I went, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. It was a YA novel about a young man who felt a lot like me. And it's a beautiful book. I was about to check it out, and this old lady was like, that's not for you. And I was like, it's in the YA section. And she was like, no. But then after she walked away, this gay librarian with blue hair was like, ignore her. And he let me check it out. And he was like, she hasn't had her coffee. And he was like, how old are you? And I was like, I'm 11. He was like, this is appropriate for you. And so I took it home, read it under my covers with a flashlight. My parents weren't cool with the gay thing yet. Now they are, though. They're lovely. But when I was 11, no, they weren't cool with it. But I read the book, and it honestly changed my life. And it was because of a librarian like that helped guide me into feeling safe, feeling like I belonged in this world, and feeling like there was nothing wrong with me. And then ever since, I've loved libraries, from my high school library, any library really, and now as a 45-year-old, it is one of the nicest places to work on your laptop when you need a cool place to write or read. More people should read. Yes, let's read more. So yeah, I love the San Francisco Public Library. They let me host one of my first poetry festivals here. Didn't even have to pay for the space. I just reached out to them. I said, hi, I want to host a poetry festival called My First Love. And they were like, yeah. It was lovely. Let's give it up one more time for the SF Public Library. And like Ryan said, today we're going to watch a documentary called The Librarians. This is the 55-minute version of the documentary, but if you want to watch the full version, go ahead and tune in at KQED Channel 9 tomorrow, February 9th at 9, or you can see it online at video.kqed.org after Monday. After the documentary, we're going to have a panel discussion and interview. I'm going to pretend to be a chubby Mexican Oprah, and I'm going to interview two really important folks, two panelists that do a lot much more. I'm just a comedian and a writer, and I love donuts, but these two folks that we're going to have in the panel discussion do really important work. You know them. They're famous. One of them is, oh my gosh, I'm a big fan. Not only is she the co-creator of Drag Story Hour, she's also our current reigning drag laureate, Persia. Fantastic. And we have René Peña Govea, a middle school librarian and author. That's also amazing. Please give it up. Yes. So, folks, after the documentary, I will be interviewing these folks on stage, but if you want to be a part of the conversation and a part of the Q&A, KQED staff will be passing out little note cards so you can write a question that I will be asking for you, since I am the moderator / host / chubby Oprah, for you after the discussion, all right? So keep an eye out for KQED staff so that you can get your little note card to write down your question for the panelists. All right, everybody ready to see the documentary? Yeah, take a deep breath, let it out. All right, roll the film. The mic is on. Who here cried a little during that documentary? Raise your hands. It's okay. Don't be ashamed. Even though I had already seen that documentary, I guess the first time I saw it by myself on my laptop, and it is very different to experience something like that in a room full of people, right? It is so different to experience with your fellow folks. So everybody please join me. Take a deep breath and let it out. Ooh. Yay. Also, I never thought that watching a documentary about librarians would get me so emotional and make me like a little terrified about what's going on. I never thought that librarians would be on the forefront of a battle that is happening throughout this country. And something I thought about while watching it with y'all was the fact that they kept saying, I never thought this would happen. I never thought this would happen. And I remember when I was, I believe in high school, it was during like a history class. I remember when I found out that my teacher said, well, yeah, after World War II, there are some Nazis still left in the US, but they're harmless. And everybody just didn't think anything of it. And I remember raising my hand going like, wait. So they were the bad guys during World War II. And after that was over, we just kind of let them hang out here. And my teacher, Mr. Wallen at Albany High here in the East Bay said, Baruch, there's like 2 of them left. The year was 1996. He said, you have nothing to worry about. When you're an adult, you won't even remember what Nazis are. He also thought, he's probably, hopefully he's still around. He also probably, and you know what, back then in the 90s, he was a Republican. And I remember as a closeted gay kid thinking, because he would say during class, I'm a Republican, but I'm an American. And I believe everybody has the right to be who they are in this country. I believe in freedom of speech as a Republican. And he even would stop the class. He'd be like, all right, I've heard enough from the gentlemen. I want the ladies to raise their hands. I want the ladies to talk. Men don't give women enough space to talk. And we would press them enough. This was a Republican in the 90s. So I remember in the 90s thinking like, wow, Republicans aren't that bad. Anyway. So it's really, another thing that stood out to me was the folks that were completely in the dark. The folks getting interviewed who were completely anonymous. That's how much in danger these folks are. So anyway, that's what I thought about while watching that. Thank you so much for the library and KQED for hosting this. Are y'all ready for our panel discussion and interview section? Yay, cool, because so am I. All right, I'm gonna stand over here so that they can walk to their chairs. There is a lot to unpack in that movie. But let's bring out our panelists. The first panelist to come up is a writer and a librarian and a musician born and raised here in San Francisco. She has been named a Publishers Weekly Spring 2026 Writer to Watch. Wow. And a YBCA-100 Honoree. That's amazing. And an SFPL Brown-Handler Resident. Her debut novel, Estela, Undrowning, from Quill Tree and HarperCollins. Damn, okay. Will be published on March 3rd, 2026. Please give it up for René Peña Govea. Welcome. Also, I love your outfit. Welcome, welcome. All right, and our other panelist, you know her, you love her. She is a first-generation trans-American artist and educator whose drag roots trace back to the Mission District's iconic Esta Noche. Blending storytelling, performance, and arts education, she co-founded Drag Story Hour and champions creative expression for youth across the Bay Area. Congratulations on being San Francisco's Drag Laureate. Please get up for Persia! Also looking fabulous. I love you. I'm beautiful. Welcome. All right. First of all, thank you so much for being here. You're both fantastic. You're fabulous. You look great. How do I look?
Beautiful.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, I look great. All right. First, I'm supposed to ask you just like your general thoughts on the film. What did y'all think of the documentary?
Well, I actually saw this at a special screening at the Roxy for teacher librarians, which are a fabulous group. And yeah, and it was the extended version. So I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to be ready to come up here? Because the extended version actually, I feel like ends on a little bit more of a hopeful note about some of the victories that they're having and pushing back. And I don't know if I should spoil it, but some of the people in the shadows actually reveal themselves and come out and say, you know, I'm going to keep fighting. It's emotional, but I thought it was like a hopeful note to end on. So just if anyone else is also feeling a little down, that does come out in the extended version.
It brought up a lot of memories of the beginning of the anti-drag story hour movement, and I've been very privileged and very lucky that I've never had a physical encounter, because there's always been someone there to sort of block that. I know that one of my drag siblings, I like to call, wasn't as lucky as I'm sure a lot of you are aware. It happened 3 years ago, I believe. And so it brought up a lot of memories, and just having to deal with people wanting to attack me for just reading stories and looking fabulous. While doing that was just reminding me of how much all of us at Drag Story Hour have gone through. And you know, we think that San Francisco is a little bubble, and it kind of is to a certain degree, but it doesn't escape us. And I remember I was just like, wow, how did I do that? Like, how did I go to those story hours? And I remember my first one, and it was in Rock Ridge, and I was nervous and I was shaking. I got a car because I live in the Mission, and so I got a ride share from the Mission to Rock Ridge, and as I was approaching, my heart was like racing, and seeing all the officers outside the library. And you know, I've lived in San Francisco for 20 years. This is my home, but I'm originally from South Central LA, and well, we all know the cops haven't been very nice, to put it nicely. And so it brought up a lot of trauma, and I was just like, I'm just trying to read stories. And yeah, so it brought up a lot of things.
And it's funny, like, yeah, I'm just gonna ask the next question. changing the subject just a little bit, can you tell us a story about going to a library, either in your hometown or San Francisco? What was it like? How did it make you feel? Like, where did your journeys with libraries start?
Should I start? So I have, when I was a little kid, this is not my first career, but I think it was my first career dream. My parents can tell you, I said I wanted to be a librarian. I even went to shadow my children's librarian at the Bernal Heights branch for Take Your Daughter to Work Day. I don't know how she agreed to that, but she took me on for the day. And then we went and got like Pizza Express, and it was just such a magical place. I've always loved reading. My parents are big readers. My children are big readers. And then, I did other things as a career, but I kind of found my way back to being a librarian, first at high school and now at a middle school. And it's just such a powerful position of service. Because I know those kids who, came out to their parents because they read Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, which is just like a precious book. But I know that that's the direct reason for that. And I just know how big of kind of a role it is and how big of a responsibility. And it's a great job.
My first experience was really in high school. I didn't like going to my local branch because, again, South Central LA. And I didn't look like this, but, you can tell. That was a little different. And so in order to avoid some of the gangs around, I just took the bus just straight to downtown LA, and that's where my love for the library began. I remember entering and seeing how beautiful like the building is, but then as I walked in and discovered the different wings, and then I realized it's like 6 floors and there's these escalators. It was so magical. My brain was just like, what is this? Oh my God. And then asking people, for a particular book or whatnot, then finding out of all these amazing resources. I did, when I wanted to be an actor, I did my first play there. But that was because I started making friends with the librarians, because really your best friend is and should be a librarian. They have all the resources, and if they don't know, they will point you in the right direction. So yeah.
That's incredible. You two are authors. You both work in libraries. I see writers as celebrations of knowledge and stories, and I see librarians now, especially after seeing that documentary, as protectors of knowledge. So I just kind of wanted to stop for a second and say thank you to both of you. Let's give them a round of applause for the stuff that you do. I guess me too. But I guess another question to keep it going: why do you think librarians have wound up on the front lines of these heated political discussions about reading and intellectual freedom?
Well, I mean, the library is one of the last third spaces, the last spaces that's open to everyone. That's really the place where anyone can, like Persia was saying, come for any resources. I'm a librarian. I'm also an educator. We're about to go on strike tomorrow. Support your educators. We're fighting for the students and their families and the schools that we all deserve. But I recently had, a colleague who is a sub in our school, and she had a question about her paycheck, and she said, she's kind of old school, but she's like, I'm going to call the library. Like, I need to call the library. I need to get the legal code. She knew what she had to do, but she still was like, let me go to the library for this. So I think we're just that place that's open to everyone for anything. And so, of course, they're going to go after that because it's just another step in the battle of corporatizing, of privatizing, of locking things down so that only the powerful, only the rich, only the privileged can have the knowledge that they need and the resources that they need.
Yeah, definitely.
No, it's true. And I'm all about, SFPL, because they've really shown me and my community how to show up for people and not ask them like, what do you need? How can I help you? Like, no, they show up and they've uplifted me for the past 10 years. And in many ways, I'm becoming more financially literate because of SFPL. And so there's so many rich resources here. And if they can control that, then they can control everything. And I think that's what they want to do. And so, we got to stay, loud and proud, and we got to keep fighting, because that's the only way we can move forward. And, the children are our future.
It is easier to subjugate a group of people if they don't know their history, if they don't have access to their knowledge, to other knowledge, to learning different things about the world. And that's what I think libraries represent. I'm going to start with some questions. I have a question for you, René. How has working as a middle school librarian helped you engage with your local community?
Yeah, so I think something that might not be apparent to people who aren't a librarian is that we really are, we're about, freedom of expression, freedom to read, but that we're also located within a community and we're very localized. So my library where I work would not be the same as a library on the other side of town, because they are serving their particular population. I'm serving my particular population. And it's not about me and my preferences, but it's really about serving my readers and my students. And so that's how we order books. That's how we stock our libraries. And so I think that's really our mission, is to serve. So when I worked at a high school, I ordered books that they were asking for, that sometimes like, okay, really, you want to read this? But okay, I'm going to order it, because that's my mission, is to serve you. And of course, we have our age recommendations that we go by. And so I don't staff books that they're claiming are obscene. We don't have that at a middle school level. But it is about really interrogating and kind of like not going based on your own personal preferences, but what your readership is asking for.
And you as a librarian here in the Bay Area, have you experienced, because I think a lot of us don't know, because we think we're safe in California, we think we're safe here in San Francisco, like especially what's happening in the news. I feel like a lot of my friends are like, oh, Baruch, it's fine, we're safe in San Francisco. And I'm like, are we? Have you experienced any of the attacks that have been happening in Texas and Florida here in San Francisco as a librarian, or have any of your colleagues experienced stuff like that?
Yeah, so I would say I've been fortunate that not to the degree that we've seen in the film, but it's not completely out of the realm of possibility. I did have a parent question a book that their kid was reading. One of my favorite books, The Passing Playbook. I would recommend it to anyone. But the parent had a problem because it had a trans male protagonist, and their kid was reading it. That parent never came to me. They came to the teacher of the child, because I guess they were more comfortable with the teacher. But we definitely have been prepared by our boss to have all of our policies intact, to have a plan of referring those challenges to him. And so there is steps in place that we are all aware of and trained on in order to protect ourselves. And I think that's just, I kind of think in places where it's less overt, the attacks, there still is a chilling effect. So I have genrefied all my libraries that I've worked in, which means that, again, in response to readers' needs, I have placed books in genres that are easily searchable for them. But, it goes through my mind where, am I going to put the LGBTQ books in their own section? Am I going to label them, or am I going to intersperse them with romance? And that's really, again, about serving my readers. So if kids' parents are having a problem with them reading the books, I'm still going to have the books there, but maybe I won't I'll label them in a way that's safer for those kids to access without incurring that wrath or that attacks from their parents. So, it's kind of a dicey and very complicated thing. But my mission, again, is always to serve my young people and to make it accessible to them without having those attacks. I will say also as an author, that's something I have to take in consideration. How am I going to market my book? My book does have some what people would call steamy or spicy material.
Ooh, good.
And it's like, am I going to lean into that? I'm going to market it as that. Maybe not as much. And, or is that a sacrifice that I'm willing to make in terms of someone who believes that kids already have access to a lot of negative representations of sex and they deserve consensual sex-positive representations? That's like a choice that I have to make within this context.
Yeah, and it's great that you mentioned that about categorizing. I remember in high school, I brought 2 books home from the library, and my parents used to be very like, "What's in your backpack?" Because they were like, "Don't get us deported. Are you doing drugs?" And I was like, "No, I'm not doing drugs." And they looked through my backpack, and my mother was like, "What are these?" And I was like, "They're 2 books of poetry." And she went, "Oh, okay." She kind of let me go to my room, but as I was thinking, I was like, "Haha, by gay French poets." I was like, little did she know who Paul Verlaine and Arthur Rimbaud are. Because that's how gay I was. In high school, I took the time to read gay French poetry. Please tell us again the title of your book, and can you talk a little bit of it, just so folks know to buy it on March 3rd?
Thank you. Why, yes, I can. So my book is called Estela, Undrowning, and undrowning is a play on a Spanish word called desahogarse, which means to unburden yourself. But the literal translation would be to undrown yourself and to undrown those emotions. And it's about a girl who is one of the only Latinas attending San Francisco's most exclusive public high school, which if you're from the city, you might know of a place like that, and who is facing institutional racism as being one of the only. She's facing eviction, anxiety, and all of this happens because she loses a Latino poetry contest to a non-Latino person and gets thrust into all these debates over diversity, merit, and identity. And there's also some romance in there, so something for everyone.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Coming out March 3rd. Now, I had some questions for Persia. Let's see. Which one? I'm going to start with the hardest one first because you're a pro and you're amazing and you look good. In a time when trans people and drag queens are being targeted, why does universal access to books matter?
So it having someone that looks like you, whether it be on screen or in a book, is so important. And especially important for a young person to see themselves. And so this is why I think it's so crucial that there's all kinds of books. When I do drag story hour, I read about gender, but I also read about, people like Frida Kahlo. I read about different people from different places on Earth. I read about Mother Earth and how we need to take care of her. There's so many things that I read about. It's not just gender. And so reading and listening to different stories of different people, whether you can relate or not, it's so important because then you get to experience other things, other people. And when I know your stories and you know my story, guess what happens? We're nicer to one another. So if our government really listened to us and listened to our stories, they would be a lot more gentle on the way they vote, on the way they communicate with one another, and we would be a much happier society. And I am so lucky and so privileged that I get to enter spaces like this. I get to go to schools all over the Bay Area. I get to participate in spaces that trans people like me don't get to. And this is why it's important, because you get to see a different perspective and a different side. And I was invited to write a comic book about one of those experiences. And during the height of the anti-drag trans movement, my roommate set me aside and he's like, you need to go on a vacation. You're drowning in all the hate that's happening online. It's just too much. You need a vacation. You need to take a break. And I was like, okay. So I was on my last drag story hour in Oakland. And I was usually, I read a book and then I do a lip sync number. It's a Katy Perry song. It's like, do you ever feel like a plastic bag over and over and over? And I bring all these plastic bags and I'm just like, do you ever feel like a what? Plastic bag, plastic bag, plastic bag. And so anyway, and then for my second book, because I always bring a whole bunch of books and I'm like, oh my God, I have a problem. Too many books, what do I read? And I do it with this voice. I don't know why it comes out. And then there's one kid and the kid's like raising his hand. He's like, ah. And I was like, yes, you, what should I? And I couldn't even finish the sentence when this kid is like, read No One Owns the Colors, and my name is, we'll say Socrates. My name is Socrates, and I am transgender! And let me tell you, at that moment, it took every ounce in me not to burst into tears, because I came out really late in life, 40.
Very young, a very young 40.
And I didn't have the language. And so books that talk about, trans folks and people from other communities, it teaches us the language. And in turn, it teaches us how to identify how we feel inside. And it doesn't matter how you identify, but it teaches you the language, the proper words to use to be like, oh, that's me. So this is why it's so important. And I wish that I had the vocabulary when I was younger. It took me almost 40 years to get that vocabulary. And so this is why it's so important. And I'm shocked that I didn't start crying, because usually I start crying. But I saw them last summer. And they're like this tall now. And so I get to see them every year, and I get to see how tall they are. And they may identify a certain way today. And guess what? We all change. We all get wrinkles. We all get gray hair. Our bones hurt. Our knees crack. So our bodies are constantly changing. And so we might like red today, but we might like purple tomorrow. You don't know. But allowing young people especially to learn about different people and learning about different languages really, really helps me be a better person.
Oh, totally, yeah. Let's clap. Thank you for that. That was an incredible story. I think something else that's important to acknowledge about reading, not just stuff about yourself and having access to knowledge, is that I experienced something as a queer person where I literally thought we were the first ones. Like I was like, oh, this is the first time in history that gay people have been allowed to be gay. And then I went to the library and read, oh, queer people have been around forever. And I'm learning new stuff every day, even on, not TikTok, because I'm not on TikTok, but I love a random Instagram historian who's like, actually 3,000 years ago, there was all this gay stuff happening. And imagine what kind of world we would live in if people learned about their history from an earlier age. I love what you two do. I love that you do Drag Queen Story Hour. I have one more question about it. Let's see. I guess, should we start with questions from the audience? I think we should. My boss says it's time to start from questions from the audience. Now, folks in the audience have written questions for us. This is a good one. I also don't know about this. Have there been book bans here in California?
Yes. I'm sure there have. I don't have an anecdote, but we are kind of in a bubble. And yeah, there's other places in California too, besides here.
I have this other question that I also want to know. It is important. How can we support the librarians standing up against censorship in concrete and practical ways? It's a very good question.
I've been working with a few organizations. I just did a big event over in North Beach. It was called Books Not Bans. And what they do, it was a huge fundraiser where they buy books that are banned in other states. And then once you can buy a book, and then that book will be sent to that particular state or a particular organization that's in that state to help people get those books, have access to those books. So that's one way of sort of like participating in helping communities that are lacking access.
Yeah, I would also say I'm not a public librarian, so I'm in the school system, but I do know that any requests also can make a difference. So if you're requesting books that are banned from your public library, that all of those numbers, will go somewhere, and that's data that can be used to say these books are valuable, these books are being requested. So there's, many lists of banned books, either from the prior year that the ALA compiles, or just of all time, Fahrenheit 451, 1984, et cetera, that you can just continuously be requesting and just making sure that they're in the consciousness as valuable books that we still need.
Yeah, totally. And Persia mentioned Books Not Bans. That was started here in San Francisco, right?
Yes.
So an organization started here in San Francisco, y'all. They have a website. I think my friend, local writer Maggie Takuta Hall works with them. Very important organization. I have another question here. Let's see. Oh, why was the film shown, the full film? Well, we didn't have time to show the full film, but just as a reminder, y'all can see the full documentary tomorrow at 10 p.m. on Channel 9 KQED, and you can also watch all of it later after Monday on video.kqed.org. So you can go there to see the whole documentary for free, so you can see the I haven't seen the full one. I love that in the end you can see their faces because the fight's still going. Librarians are still being freaking amazing. This question I thought was really sweet because I also was very emotional during the showing. Should I be worried about our local librarians?
Yes, always. Yes. They always need our support. Programming like Persia's involved in, is always something that we need to support and uplift and just highlight as valuable and as important bulwarks of our democracy.
And it's the best when you're having a conversation with a librarian. You're like, I always find out something new every time I'm because I always go to the Castro branch, the Eureka branch. And I'm there at least once a week. So I'm like, oh, this and this. They're like, oh, what about that? And I'm like, oh, yeah. So anyway, make your librarian your best friend, please. And if you're a librarian, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I wish if I wasn't a drag performer / educator, maybe later in my life, I'll become a librarian. Yeah.
Oh yeah, my roommate is a stand-up comedian, and here's how well that's going. He is going to school to become a librarian himself because he is so inspired by the work that y'all do. Thank you so much to all the librarians. Any final thoughts? Because we're at the end of our discussion. Any last thoughts you'd like to say, René or Persia?
I think we all are part of this fight. So that's what I would say is just thank you for coming to watch it. Thank you for using the library. The more we use the library, the more it's shown to be a valuable space and the librarians as the valuable people that they are. Same with school libraries. Encourage your children to use them. Encourage the budget to always include libraries. I think our funding is secure for now, but given the cuts that are happening to the schools, given the attacks that are happening on our educators, the more that all of us in the community just are constantly vocal that we need these spaces, that we are using these spaces, that these spaces have been formative for us, I think will help.
Yes, and share your stories. Share your stories. I work at an after-school arts program with first graders, and I'm reading to them constantly, reading stories about Celia Cruz, but also, just funny, silly stories. We create our own stories, our one-word stories, and we're always sharing stories. And it is so important because it creates such a bond with my students, but also with people. It's like, oh, you're no longer that drag queen. You're that drag queen that reads to kids. Oh, and then she did this, this, and this. Or, oh, there's the guy who owns that coffee shop. Oh, he owns a coffee shop, but he also has 2 kids. And one of them's in high school, the other's in middle school, which they are. And so that's how we keep connecting, because there's, I'm not against technology because I do have an iPhone, but technology will never replace the human connection and the human experience. So, and that's what librarians bring to the table. Connection, experience, and lots of resources.
Thank you so much, everyone. That is all the time we have for today. My name is Baruch Porras Hernandez. Please follow me on Instagram. I only have like 2 followers. Do it today. I want to thank KQED. I want to thank Ryan and Joanne. I especially want to thank the San Francisco Public Library, all the librarians, especially René Peña Govea and Persia. Thank you so much, everyone. Become a KQED member today and donate, donate, donate. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. I'll be at the Bernal Branch on March 12th if anyone wants to hear about my book.
Yes,
Well, I'll be there.
March 12th. Book day.